What is up, everybody? Welcome to Guys and Bets. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Andrew Avery here with Joe Osborne.
Indeed.
Joe, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Happy Friday.
Looking forward to the weekend.
Looking forward to the weekend. Pretty jam-packed show here. A trio of NBA picks. We've got a little UFC, some college hoops, and some footy picks. And it wouldn't be Guys and Bets without, of course, the third.
The heart of the show.
The heart of the show, the third of the trio. Iain MacMillan. Iain, how's it going?
Very well. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good to hear. Can we get this Tom Brady poster down off the wall behind me? I hate looking at him every single day I'm on this show.
Well, why don't you pay to replace it if you have such a problem with it?
I will. I'll put up a nice picture of Julio Jones.
Always the first to complain, always the first not to offer a solution. Textbook Iain.
If you could replace that Tom Brady photo with anyone throughout history in sports, would you pick Julio Jones?
Throughout the history of sports?
Julio Jones.
No, I wouldn't go Julio Jones if I was going through the entire history of sports.
Joey Chestnut.
Joey Chestnut.
That'd be my selection.
George Foreman.
I've got a Joe Osborne picture here.
There we go. Yes. I like it. We'll replace it with that.
I posted one on Twitter there yesterday that I think would be pretty appropriate for right behind you, Iain.
I think that was a black and white picture too, I think.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It fit well.
Iain, I have had a terrible week with my soccer picks, and I know you've had a rough stretch here. I don't know if that's continued on, but what have you done to break yourself out of a cold streak?
I pretend like the previous day didn't happen. Is what that's what I've resorted to at this point. I mean,
you got to do the same thing if you're on a winning streak, though.
What do you mean?
Well, if you take that approach, yeah. If you had a great day the day before, that's not an excuse just to fire on a bunch of bets.
Yeah.
You got to approach each day individually.
A mistake I still make, to be honest.
It's like Browns head coach Stefanski said we want to go 1-0 this week, and I kind of like that mindset.
Baby steps. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely.
And other assorted sayings.
Yep. I just pretend losses didn't happen.
Yeah. Iain will be chiming in with a little UFC and a college basketball pick here momentarily. But as usual, he will be in the back monitoring the chat there if you're watching live on YouTube. So any questions, concerns, complaints, life advice, Joe? You've offered your life advice.
Sex tips from Iain.
Some would say I'm an expert. Some would say.
Who?
Well, I mean,
maybe from an individual perspective.
Some would say.
And you're the one.
Some would say I have the most experience on this show. Some would say.
From an individual perspective, sure.
All right, let's get into some picks.
Anyway, yeah, for the love of God. Let's start us off with some NBA here, Joe. It is the hot Phoenix Suns, I'll say, against the bird of flight we learned the other day on the show, the Pelicans. What do you got for this one?
Yeah, I got the Suns getting cooled off tonight in New Orleans.
Done.
Absolutely. I'm taking the Pelicans here, plus 3.5. I like them to cover the spread. Let's get right into this one. Taking a look at some key offensive stats over the last 10 games, the Pelicans come out on top basically everywhere. They rank higher in EFG percentage, points per 100 possessions, and points in the paint. They're also doing some of the smaller things better and should have the edge in the free throw and turnover department. In that 10-game sample size, they rank higher in both free throw attempt rate and opponent free throw attempt rate, while also turning the ball over less and forcing more turnovers. And this is a rematch from a blowout earlier in the month that saw the Pelicans win by 22 points in Phoenix. New Orleans outscored them in 3 of the 4 quarters, and now we can get them as a 3.5-point dog at home. I'm all in, my favorite underdog of the day.
Are the Pellies slowly becoming a GMB favorite?
I like
GMB darling, I should say, because of the overs as well?
Yeah, I think we hit on them on a first quarter bet there last week. A couple of over spots for the Pellies. So, yeah, they're slowly turning a bit of a corner. But then, I think earlier this week, they lost to the Pissers. So, it's hard to be very consistent when you're losing to Detroit. But
Yes.
whatever, I like them to take care of business, cover the spread tonight.
All right, speaking of taking care of business, IMAC takes a look at the UFC card this weekend, and Blades versus Lewis, it looks like here. IMAC, what are you looking at?
Yeah, a little heavyweight tilt in the main event. Actually, I think there's like 4 or 5 heavyweight fights on this card. But big plus money play here that I think has quite a bit of value. So Blades via decision in this fight over Derek Lewis, plus 325. So UFC betting, in my opinion, one of the toughest sports to bet on because as fans never know what a fighter's game plan is going to be heading into the fight. Well, Curtis Blades has done us a favor and he's told us exactly what he plans to do on Saturday night. He told Ariel Helwani this week, quote, "I'm out here trying to feed my family. I don't care if you want me to risk my win bonus to stand and bang with a guy who has terrible wrestling. Nah, I'm just not going to do it." He very clearly plans to just wrestle Lewis for 5 rounds, just like he did in his last fight against Alexander Volkov, which he won by 5-round decision. Also, the stats show he should have no problem doing this. He averages 6.98 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he'll be doing it against Derek Lewis, who has a takedown defense of just 52%. Finally, Derek Lewis has had issues when facing wrestlers in the past. He was absolutely murked by Daniel Cormier in his title shot in 2018. He won a controversial decision at UFC 247 last year against Ilir Latifi, who he even had a big size advantage against. Now, is this bet a lock? No, absolutely not. Derek Lewis, he's never gone a full 5 rounds, and his cardio is so bad he might just lose via exhaustion before the final bell. But plus 325 odds when Curtis Blades has already come out and said that it's exactly how he plans on winning. Yes, please. Blades, decision, plus 325.
I like it.
You like that one too?
I won't be betting that myself, but I would expect a little bit of a longer fight with Blades in there for sure, using that wrestling. You never know with Derek Lewis, and it is the heavyweight division.
Yep.
Of course. But yeah, I like the big bet by young Ian there.
Over to the Premier League now, and some nice little matchups in the Prem, and we'll talk about one, Joe, at the bottom of the show, but I digress. I'm looking at Southampton-Chelsea here, desperate for a winning pick here, and this pick reeks of desperation, but Chelsea money line, give me that one, minus 135. I said a while back that Southampton would come crashing back down to earth after a good start. And boy, are they ever. 6 straight losses in the league has plummeted them to 13th in the table. And some really poor performances mixed in there, specifically the 2-0 loss at Leicester, that embarrassment at Man United, obviously, and the loss to Wolves most recently. And again, just not a great home team this season. Second worst at home last season, if you remember. And this season a bit better, but still just sort of middle of the pack with 6 losses from 12 games so far. And speaking of home, St. Mary's Stadium, Chelsea loves taking trips to play here. Chelsea has won their last 5 Premier League games at the St. Mary's, outscoring Southampton 14-4 in the process, most recently beating them 4-1 early last season with goals from Abraham, Mount, Conte, and Michy Batshuayi. And Chelsea, again, just playing solid football under Thomas Tuchel. 5 Premier League games, 4 wins, and 1 draw, which came against Wolves. They've conceded just 1 Premier League goal so far, that coming at Sheffield United, and have outscored their opponents by a tidy sum of 7-1 in those Premier League games under Tuchel. Big Champions League game coming up against Atletico Madrid next week, so we may see a slightly rotated Chelsea team here, but they'll be ready. Chelsea money line for me in this one, which means Southampton will win 4-1.
For all the best in sports betting and free picks, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Seriously, do these things.
Yeah, please subscribe if you have not already and give us a thumbs up there as well. But back to the NBA. You referred to them earlier in the show here, Joe, but it is the Pistons hosting the Greasy Grizz. What do you got in this one?
You are incorrect. The Grizzlies are hosting the Detroit Pistons.
Oh, my apologies.
My friend, how dare you?
My apologies.
Okay, indeed. It is the game that everyone is talking about. It is the Detroit Pistons taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. Yes! We have a total of 220.5, and I am going to go over. Let's get right into it. The Grizzlies are currently on a streak of 6 straight overs in games which saw an average combined score of 238.5. They've been great from three-point land during this period, ranking 4th in three-point percentage, but ranked 25th and opponent three-point percentage. Stretching that sample size out to over the last 10 games, these are two of the worst defenses in the NBA. Memphis is dead last in opponent EFG percentage, 26 in points allowed per 100 possessions, and 23rd in opponent free throw attempt rate. The Pistons, meanwhile, ranked 22nd in opponent EFG percentage and ranked 26th in opponent offensive rebound percentage. This plays right into the Grizzlies' hands as they rank 3rd in second chance points over the last 10. To conclude, expect each squad to have an easy time connecting on high percentage shots as each defense is in the bottom third of the league in points allowed in the paint over the last 10 games. Give me over between the Pistons and Grizzlies.
Over to the boot now for a little Serie A action and another sizable plus money pick here for me. I'm looking at that Parma-Udinese game. This, I believe, is the early Sunday game. I'm looking at Udinese over 2 plus 310. So look, I've been betting Udinese goals in a few spots so far this season purely because of their expected goals and their very good chance creation. Other teams to look at with this sort of approach in mind: Brighton, Sheffield, Celta Vigo, Fiorentina. Anyway, Udinese 7th in Serie A with 32.28 expected goals despite scoring just 23 for a difference of plus 9.28. Second biggest disparity in Europe's top 5 leagues, only behind Brighton. They sit at plus 10.26. As far as expected points, they sit at 36.32, which is well above just the 24 that they've only accumulated so far this season. So they create a lot of scoring opportunities, and statistics show that they should be much better than they actually are. A team who has not performed well is Parma, who is second last in Serie A with 13 measly points, just one ahead of Crotone. They've conceded the second most goals in the league at 43 and have the second worst goal diff at minus 28. They have 1 point from their last 10 league games. They haven't scored in their last 7 home games, and they've been outscored 14-0 in their last 5 league games at home. Awful, despite making some pretty interesting signings in January, I must say. But in the reverse fixture, Udinese fantastic in attack, winning 3-2 at home back in October. Rodrigo de Paul, one of the better players in the league this season, so I'll be looking for another fantastic performance from him. He actually leads the league in expected assists with 7.28 despite having just 1 on the season. That is criminal. Finish those chances. Solid price though on over 2 for Udinese in that early Sunday game. All right, IMAC, over to a little college hoops action here. Who is this? UC Irvine and Cal State Fullerton. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, he's got the jersey on. I wonder what your play is here.
Trim your outfit here, bro.
You knew I was going to whip out the jersey soon. Zot, 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 zot. Let's go, Anteaters. I'm taking UC Irvine tonight. Minus 10.5 against CS Fullerton. UC Irvine keeps the large majority of their offensive 2-point shots. They rank 5th in 2-point shot rate. CS Fullerton leans towards keeping the ball down low as well, as they also rank in the top half of the country in 2-point shot rate. But the Anteaters should dominate in this area tonight. They're 14th in opponent 2-point field goal percentage compared to CS Fullerton, who ranks 275th. Also, 55.4% of points scored against CS Fullerton come from 2-point range. That ranks 321st in the country. They're also 10th last in block percentage, so UC Irvine should have a field day down low. And also, you guys know I love a team that can rebound, and UC Irvine has a massive rebounding advantage in this game. They rank 35th in rebounding percentage, while CS Fullerton ranks 317th. Finally, UC Irvine, outside of just their interior defending, they just have an overall advantage on the defensive side of the court. They rank 37th in defensive efficiency, 24th in opponent floor percentage, and 31st in opponent field goal percentage. CS Fullerton ranks 275th, 271st, and 313th in these statistics. UC Irvine's about to go on a run in the best conference in the United States, the Big West. It starts tonight. Give me the Anteaters. Zot, 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 zot.
Ian, what's your body hair grooming routine like?
I don't grow much body hair, to be honest.
So do you just let it fall out? Like do you trim your armpit hair often, or is it you just let it fall out?
I don't trim any body hair whatsoever except for on my face. But
any at all? Okay.
I gotta say though, these basketball jerseys make my traps look pretty good though. Look at that. Woo!
Not bad.
Let's go.
Bad. Not bad.
Joe and things here.
Zot.
Mercifully in the NBA with the Oklahoma City Thunder visiting the Milwaukee Bucks, and it's player prop time. What are you looking at in this matchup?
Been one of my favorite spots all season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sitting there at 20.5 points. And you know where we're going. We're taking the over. Let's get right into it. This has been a hot spot, including on this show where we've hit the SGA over multiple times. Specific to 20.5 points, he's topped this in 8 of his last 9, and he's been hot AF since his return from injury, scoring 31, 29, and 22 points. He might be catching these Bucks at the right time because they're getting blasted on D during their 5-game losing streak. They're allowing 120 points per game during the stretch while ranking 25th in opponent EFG percentage. About half of his points come in the paint, which matches up pretty good with the Bucks suddenly beginning to struggle at defending in close as they find themselves in the bottom half of the league in points allowed in the paint over the last 10 games. Give me SGA over 20.5 points.
SGA approved.
SGA Fridays. This is the third Friday where I've taken an SGA over. He's hit the 2 previous ones, so
there you go.
If he hits it, we'll make that a thing.
Trends. There you go. Ian, what is going on? Have you put your shirt on? No, you've still got the tank top on. What's going on in the chat?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this on for the rest of the show, of course. Let's get into some questions here. I'll start with the college basketball one. Kyle Clement says, hey, Ian, how do you feel about Marist plus 8.5? Bet on them last night and hoping to feel better about it. I haven't looked too far into that game. I believe it's St. Peter's, but I love them at plus 8.5. Them and St. Peter's have a lot of very similar statistics. I don't really know why the spread is so big, to be completely honest. But one thing that I would like in that game, and I think someone else asked about a different MAC game, MAAC, Metro Athletic. I don't know what the order of that is. But the unders in those conferences, I always love playing the unders in those conferences, so I might dabble in 1 or 2 of those, and it might be in the Marist St. Peter's game. I do like Marist getting the points in that matchup. Jonathan Fernandez, question for Ninja. Thoughts on Granada plus 265 versus last place Huesca. Granada just came out trashing Napoli 10-0. Am I missing something here?
No, good value pick there, in my opinion, as well. Be careful, though. They're 2 of their best attacking players. Bobby Soldado, former Tottenham Hotspur player, and the fake budget Luis Suarez, not, of course, the good one, but a decent player in his own right. It looks like they are doubtful, maybe even confirmed out for that game. I like Huesca. I think they play good football, but, really overmatched across the board in La Liga. Granada, one of those mid-table La Liga sides that plays really well, as evidenced, Napoli banged up yesterday, but as evidenced by a win in that Europa League game there. Yeah, good value pick, but that is a check out the starting 11 play for me. But I like the idea there.
Jonathan Fernandez also wants to know English Premier League matchup this week. Your Tottenham Hotspur against Joe's West Ham Hammers. You guys doing a tall boy bet on that or anything?
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to earlier, and I'll bring up the most recent odds here. Ian, you can humor the folks at home with a stat that you threw out to me when you walked in the office about the line here.
I believe first time Tottenham has been an underdog to West Ham since 2001.
Correct.
That game finished in a 0-0 draw.
Yeah, so right now we've got West Ham plus 165 at home, Tottenham plus 170, draw plus 235 on the 3-way money line there. Tall can on the line?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, tall can on the line.
Hammer time.
From a betting perspective, obviously not touching this one at all, but traditionally West Ham gives Tottenham a bit of trouble, and we all know Mourinho does not have this team playing very well at all, especially in the league. I know they destroyed Wolfsburger in the Europa League yesterday, a game that I actually bet on Wolfsburger, plus 700 on the money line there. the emo hedge, if you will. But not confident as a Tottenham fan. Don't like it at all. But for the sake of the show, tall can bet and not touching it at all.
Adam McDermott has an NBA question here. He says, is it too late to jump on the Jazz train? Feeling like tonight is bad timing against an equally good Clippers team. For those of you who don't know, the Jazz are 21-1, I believe it is, or is it 19-1-1?
I think it's 19-1.
I think it's 19-1.
19-1 their last 21 games against the spread. Are we going to see a reversal,
Good question, though, especially hopping in on these trends.
I don't really look at it like that. Like when the Jazz were 10-0 ATS, people will probably have that same thing in their mind. Well, the streak's got to come to an end at some point. So specifically because of that, they wouldn't touch them or even fade them in this situation. You still have to look at the game individually from a stats perspective, how they match up against the Clippers. And unfortunately, so we have the Jazz right now favored by 4 points, but the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George both questionable.
Yeah.
So it's a pain in the arse from a betting perspective.
Yeah.
So it's probably not a wise decision to fire away on that right now, unless you have some information that George and Kawhi are going to play. In that case, +4 in the Clippers, pretty good bet, I think. But yeah, you can't really look at it like, well, it's due to end at some point. You know, it's all about, do you think you're getting fair line value based on how the teams match up statistically?
Yeah. And just to add to that, it's not like they're getting lucky. If you look at their statistics, I mean, they're a very good team. They lead the NBA in rebounding percentage, like 4th in offensive efficiency, 2nd in defensive efficiency. So they're just flat out a good basketball team. But let's get back to some soccer here. Alec Pierce wants to know West Ham money line. You guys already talked about that, or Aston Villa money line. So both playing against Spurs. And so Aston Villa money line against Leicester, who could well be tired from playing Europa League.
Yeah, good point there. I believe Leicester finished 0-0 against Sparta Prague, so a bit of a slog there. And then you've got the flight. And fact of the matter is that Aston Villa is just a good football team here this season. I know Leicester higher in the table, obviously, but good point there with fatigue potentially setting in. I believe they were without Vardy yesterday again. So if he doesn't go, then, you know, and if it's a full complement, full strength starting 11 for Villa, solid play, I think. Not one I've dug into, but again, like the idea there with Villa at home against a potentially fatigued Leicester team.
Joe, Stevie Pan 1 wants to know, will the Bucks break their losing streak? And just in general, Joe, what are your thoughts on the Bucks here? What is it, 5 straight games they've lost now? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I think I don't know if they're going to cover the spread. It's a double-digit spread, and they're on a 5-game losing streak. So they should win against the Thunder tonight, and hopefully a high-scoring game because I have that SGA over. But to borrow a word from Ian, I think the Milwaukee Bucks are complete and total frauds.
Wow.
They are one of these teams. Look at their exits. They've been an amazing regular season team the past 2 seasons, and then they can't do dick all in the playoffs. And it's been the same strategy that teams use to defeat them, and they have no answers for it. The Raptors built that wall against them. Then Miami basically did the same thing in the playoffs last year. And look at Milwaukee's record versus good teams this season. They have losses to the Boston Celtics, to the Nets, to the Lakers, and look at a few more good teams that they played against that they lost to. They're not beating good teams. They're beating up on the bad teams. And when it's all said and done with this team, they're going to be remembered as a great regular season team, and that's it. And they should have fired their coach during the offseason. I compare them to the Golden State Warriors, who were a good team with Mark Jackson, but not a great team. They knew that Jackson couldn't get them over the hump, so they canned him, and that's what the Milwaukee Bucks should have done with Coach Bud after he wasn't able to make adjustments for the second playoffs in a row when the teams made that game plan to stop Giannis building that wall, stopping him from getting in the paint. I feel very strongly about this. The Milwaukee Bucks are complete and total frauds.
Coach Dud.
Coach Dud.
On that same vein here, and Danny Ainge, I believe, earlier this week came out and said that the Celtics certainly weren't a contender. What is your thoughts on that Boston Celtics team?
The Celtics are maybe the most top-heavy team in the NBA. They have the great 1-2 punch in Jaylen Brown and Tatum, and then Kemba Walker, who's not too far beneath them, and Marcus Smart's also a really good player, but I do think the Celtics have a little bit of an excuse here is how many times have all those guys, including Marcus Smart, been in the lineup together for the same game? honestly, maybe 1 or 2 games. I don't know the answer for sure, but it's not a whole lot. So there's some continuity issues there. So a lot of injuries. If they can get healthy at the right time, though, not a team that you necessarily want to see in the playoffs. So maybe some excuses for the Boston Celtics, but no excuses whatsoever for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Hottest team in the East, Toronto Raptors, 7-3 in their last 10.
Yeah, bouncing back.
Yeah.
Playing the T-Wolves tonight. I took T-Wolves team total over right up on my Twitter feed, by the way, if you're interested.
Brandon Ford asks, Ian, any value on NCAA basketball futures that I like? There are 2 teams that sticks out. March Madness sneaking up on us. It's like, what, a month away? Pretty wild. But yeah, obviously, I mean, it goes without saying, Gonzaga and Baylor are a step above the rest. One of those 2 teams are most likely going to win the national championship here. Neither team has lost. They're just dominating their opponents first and second in average scoring margin. But if you are looking for a bit of a dark horse, I have 2 teams that I do like a month out of the tournament. One is Texas Tech, 25-1. One of the best defensive teams in the entire country. I think they're flying under the radar a little bit. They made a run there, of course, 2 years ago. Were they in the final? Was it Texas Tech, I think, Virginia beat in the final? If not, it was at least the Final Four. I love defensive teams in March Madness, and Texas Tech.
That's how they got there, with that defense.
Exactly. Yep. And yeah, their defense this year is maybe not quite as good, but almost as good as it was there a couple years ago. And the other dark horse, and I believe, yes, 28-1, Oklahoma. Oklahoma Sooners kind of flying under the radar as well, but when you look at their schedule, first of all, their statistics are very good, but their only losses this season outside of a very early season loss to Xavier, an out-of-conference game is their 3rd game of the season, but their 3 losses have come against Texas Tech twice, and then Baylor, who's obviously the 2nd best team in the country right now, and then Kansas. So they've only lost to very good teams, and they also have wins against 2 wins against West Virginia, win against then-ranked number 5 Texas. They avenged their loss against Kansas and then beat Kansas a couple weeks later. So yeah, Oklahoma, I think, flying under the radar as well. They might make a little bit of a deep run in March as well. So Oklahoma 28-1, Texas Tech 25-1 would be a couple of dark horse value picks, I think, for March Madness. But like I said, I'm pretty certain it's probably going to be either Gonzaga or Baylor that wins it this year. Let's talk about some soccer. Ninja, I don't think you've tackled either of these games. Rafael Salgado says, Ninja, do you like City and over 1.5 versus Arsenal at -125?
Yeah, I definitely, let me just look up some info here. I definitely like City in that spot. City is just an unstoppable force right now. Looks like Gundogan might be doubtful. He's been unbelievable this season, but he'll probably play. Even though they don't have a proper striker, City's still getting it done, getting goals from everywhere. So yeah, I like the thought process there. City in some fashion there. -1 is -120 right now. Arsenal, a better side. I mean, they were a meme factory earlier in the season when Arteta was having troubles, but they've gotten better. And Odegaard, who played pretty well yesterday against Benfica, adding a little punch there in the attack. So not a team to be taken lightly, but in my opinion, Manchester City is really the only good Premier League team this season, just head and shoulders above the rest, like you were talking about with college hoops there, IMAC, Gonzaga, and Baylor. City is the same thing. So from here on out this season, I mean, City spreads, they're starting to score more. Early on, they were one of the top under teams in the Premier League, I believe, but they're starting to find those goals. Gundogan, again, adding to that. So, yeah, City or nothing for me in that game against Arsenal, which should be one of the better games this weekend, honestly.
A lot of people asking questions about some mid-major teams today. I haven't got a chance to handicap the entire board, but one thing I found out here, a little tidbit for a mid-major conference, the Horizon League Conference. Overs in the Horizon League Conference as a total conference are hitting at 59.7%. I think it is, just like a right below 60%. Only one team in the entire conference has more unders than overs, and it's only by one. I think Wright State is 10-11 on the over. So if you're looking for a little sneaky trend, every team in that conference plays tonight. Overs in the Horizon League, 59.7 or 59.5% this season. Pretty nutty trend there in that conference. Joe, I know I had a UFC pick on the show. You didn't have a UFC pick on the show, but I think you tweeted out a UFC pick earlier today. Do you want to touch on that at all?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm a little iffy on that main event, so I'm not playing that one. But we have another heavyweight fight. Ian had mentioned that there's a bunch of heavyweight fights on the card. So we have this guy, Chris Daukaus. He's fighting Alexei Olenek, who's 43, 44 years old, so definitely on his last legs in terms of being a professional fighter. And I like Daukaus to win inside the distance, coming in at -135. 9 of his 10 career wins have come by KO/TKO, including his first 2 fights in the UFC, which I think he looked very impressive, winning both fights in the first round. You take a look at Olenek. He's becoming a bit of a punching bag here, and he's been on the wrong end of some brutal KOs in 3 of his last 5 fights, so not a bad spot there at -135.
Someone did ask about St. Louis against who is it, Dayton they're playing today. I did quickly look at that. I think I'm going to stay away because of road splits. St. Louis's road splits are iffy at best. I think they're shooting 8% worse on the road compared to at home. Their average scoring margin drops by about 12 points. So I think they're 4.5, 5-point favorites. I'm going to stay away from that game, but I am going to bet on a couple other games. I have Utah State money line against Boise State locked in. I think they're the better team. I tweeted about that pick earlier today. Lost the other night, but I think they're the better team. I think they'll win tonight. But other than that, that looks like all the questions as of right now. I apologize if I missed any, but I think that's it.
All right, well, there you go. Like, share, subscribe, please, and thank you. We appreciate all the interaction here on Guys and Bets. Follow Ian on Twitter at IanMacOS, Joe at JTFOZ, myself at Chalk_Ninja. Thank you for joining us. Whatever you do with your bets this weekend, best of luck. Hit some winners, and we will see you next week right here on Guys and Bets. Zot.
Time for lunch! Subway! 6 inch up!